I welcome in. It is the No House Advantage NBA Strategy Show. We're going to get you ready for tonight's ticket on No House Advantage. And if you haven't already signed up for No House Advantage, what are you waiting on? We're going to give you 25 free dollars to match your first deposit. All you need to do is just sign up right away. And then once you do, you can listen to Terry because he's here. And we're going to make them work. You know, normally the two of us, right, we have all these overs and unders in the 100 to 99 percentile. I think you're going to be working just a little bit harder today. We may find ourselves in the 70s before we get out of here, Terry.
I think you might be right. Looking at this board today and just with, all the chaos in the NBA, the question marks that we've got, the guys who are coming back now from protocols, but still guys going on to the protocol list. Every team's got question marks. So it's going to be fun to go through it. It's creating some situations, with particularly the Timberwolves. I was writing about Jordan McLaughlin as like a decent DFS play who wasn't extremely owned. I got halfway through it. I was referring to Jalen Noel and Nathan Knight because they're both highly ranked in our probability metrics for DFS sites. And then by the time I finished like 3 paragraphs, everybody on the Timberwolves cleared protocol. And it was like, well, that situation might have completely changed, but there's no news if they're playing. So it's just all up in the air tonight. But yeah, it'll be fun to parse through it and try and figure some of these picks out.
All right, well, let's look at a couple of things here because, we always like to root for the overs. And if you're looking at our projections on Awesemo, which are totally free for you to use, then you'll notice a bunch of guys are sitting at 100, but there are no projections. Don't roster them. Don't roster Brandon Ingram. Don't roster Jayshawn Tate. Like these, you're not going to get any points if they're out. So you have to kind of start with guys who are expected to be out there on the floor. And there's only one guy, Terry, in the over category that's even in the 90 percentiles, and that's Bobby Portis. So we've got rebounds and P&R to look at. 96 for just rebounds, 90 closer to 97 for rebounds, 94.5% that he goes over for points and rebounds.
Yeah, that's number one for me with a bullet right now. Bobby Portis, we're expecting him to start again. We're expecting Brook Lopez still to be out. He's like the one confirmed guy who's definitely out tonight for Milwaukee. So Portis is going to get basically starters run in the form that he typically gets. We've got him projected at 26.9 for the season. He's averaged 28.2. So we've got him a little bit under his seasonal average, but I expect he'll probably cruise through our minutes projection. I don't love projecting Portis for points, although he's scoring 15.7 a game. What I really like about this one is the rebounds. He's averaging 9 rebounds a game in just over what we're projecting him for, and this line is half that. Right. So we've got him at an 8.16 projection. I think he cruises to the over. Even if something happens and he only plays 22 minutes, 20 minutes, I think he's well over that 4.5 mark. So that's an easy one to pick off and put at the top of a card. I think the Bobby Portis rebounds. I'm fine with the points plus rebounds as well. I just don't, like I said, he's averaging 15.7. I don't look to Portis for scoring. I look to him for rebounding and dirty work. That's kind of how I think of Bobby Portis. But at 94%, that one's totally fine too.
Yeah, and to aid your cause here, the projection that Alex has for Portis scoring is at just under 14.5 versus the 8.5 that NHA has. So big night all around expected for Portis. That could only mean more minutes on the floor and just taking advantage of what you said without Brook Lopez. So great place to start by all means. Before we dive, and there are going to be a couple on the unders, but just real quick, because we have him below, and you can take your time. I'm just saying real quick, let me get to him. Halliburton sits at a pretty good number, a juicy number, just under 90% at 89.95, that he goes over those assists. And Alex has him nearly 2 assists higher than the projection on NHA.
Yeah, I don't mind that one. We've got him projected for a couple minutes over his average. He's averaging 33.9 minutes. We've got him projected at 36.5 minutes for the night. For the season in that run, he averages 6.4 assists. So with the average over that, over what the line is, and a minutes projection over what his minutes average is, I think that's pretty strong. I'm actually surprised it's only 89.9% likely. That feels a little bit stronger than that to me. I love the 7.5 projection, and I think it's pretty easy for him to cruise through that against the depleted Oklahoma team here. So yeah, I like that one just as much, and I think that makes for a solid number 2 on a card. Or if there are others that we uncover as we go over to the unders, I think they can slot in as a very strong mid-card play.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? And we'll go to the unders here and look, because you've got a couple of guys when sorted that are going to pop right above Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, no Lowry. So maybe that has, I thought it would have an impact on the other end of it, but clearly not. Maybe it's just the numbers are so high as a result of it. But that's a good point you raised about Halliburton, where it's once we get through a couple of these unders, you go back to that play, and that's a very strong 3 to 5 type point play because we've given more 90s. So let's get to that. We have two guys that are peppered on our projections with high 90s. Either of those, as far as we'll play both, but any category jump out for either?
I mean, the Beasley one is extremely interesting. I mentioned the Minnesota rotation coming in and the fact that a bunch of these guys have now cleared protocols, but there hasn't been confirmation like, all right, cleared protocols and available. We've seen Patrick Beverley has been struggling to get back into shape. He's questionable for tonight. Anthony Edwards is the key guy here. Anthony Edwards cleared the protocols. If anybody's going to clear protocols and immediately jump back into the game, I think it's probably going to be Edwards, and that would have a major, major impact on the Beasley projection here. We've got Beasley projected at 28.8 minutes, which is still above his seasonal average of 27.2, but that's still only yielding a 19.5 points PRA, and the line is 32.5. So there's a monster difference. Unless we get the situation that we kind of started the day expecting with everybody still in the on the shelf and Beasley starting, unless that's the scenario, and if it is, you'd probably see an uptick in Alex's minutes projection and a change in this board. I think that's a very, very strong play there if he's coming in around half of what his line is. So that's definitely when you can book into the top end of a card. News pending, of course, as news is pending for the entire Minnesota rotation. So if you see him start, don't play it nearly as strongly. But if he's not in that starting lineup, then I think that's an easy one to pick off here.
All right. And anything else that jumps out in that 90 range? Because by the time we hit Duncan Robinson and even Jimmy Butler, we're back to those high 90s or 80s. Sorry.
Yeah, the Daniel Tice one is one that is being created by Alex, has him projected for 1.7 minutes right now. So I want to wait to see what kind of news we get or anything like that. If you look at the most recent game, his first game back after missing 4, he played 22 minutes. So it's kind of a question mark. I think we had more of those minutes dedicated to Alperen Şengün in that rotation tonight, which I can pull up if I jump to this other page here real quick. So I think it's just a matter of minutes creating that minimal expectation on Tice. So if we get news where he's not playing, if we get news where he's questionable for any kind of minutes, then it really changes the nature of what that play looks like. I'm just looking for, we've got Şengün projected for 22.5. We've got Christian Wood at 32.1. So there's other guys that we're kind of allocating those minutes to. That's one I would wait on later minutes when we're a little bit more firm on what roles might be if we get any kind of announcement, any kind of news there. If he does take the court and only plays a limited number of minutes, 1 to 5 to 8 minutes, I think there's certainly an opportunity to get under on a 6.5 point line, but it's not like it's super low. That's only a few buckets for a guy who can do a little bit of dirty work around the rim. So like it, don't love it, and it's minutes dependent.
Yeah, and now we're back to, actually, Duncan Robinson, we can still slide him in on the PRA. I'm a little surprised. Odd Shopper was pretty favorable to going over his props, but again, those are a little bit lower, if you will, than what you would get from NHA, which makes it more favorable here because we have a wider gap to work with. But I was a little surprised without Lowry and kind of looking at this scenario here. I do get it. Butler's back, Hero's healthy, but Duncan Robinson under the PRA of 24.5 seems like a pretty big slam here, Terry.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, we know the nature of Dunk Robinson. It's most of the time he's got to be making his shots. He's got an 8.4% assist share on the season, a 6% rebounding share. He averages in 28.3 minutes a night. He averages a 16.1 PRA. So that's a pretty decent chunk below the 24.5 that he's got on him tonight on NHA. We're projecting him for slightly over his minutes projection, 29 or minutes average, 29.6 versus a 28.3. So that's still only getting him to a 17.96 PRA total in Alex's projections, pretty strongly under the 24.5 that's required. It's a situation where I don't think he's going to go out and grab a bunch of extra rebounds, rack up a bunch of extra assists. It's the only thing we worry about is, hey, is the shot falling today? Does he make a couple extra shots? So with that probability, with what we've seen from him for the course of the season, 52.4% true shooting percentage, I like that. I think it can easily coast under. Alex has it 94% likely. So it seems like a strong pick here. Maybe one that I would reserve for, not the very top of a card, but a few pegs down. But yeah, that's a strong one. Anything that's cresting over 90 today, like you mentioned at the top of the show, is going to be a pretty strong consideration for us.
I do like, and again, it's 89.6, so we can go back and forth now with the overs and unders in this 80 range here. But I could see definitely a pathway for Butler to go under assists, especially back. If anything, I would think he'd be due for a pretty big scoring night as he's slowly getting back there. Last I saw was doing something earlier for something else here with Butler specific. And I think it was like November 20th, the last time he even went over 20 points. So he's got to be salivating, right? Chomping at the bit to explode from a scoring standpoint. And we have him nearly 2.5 assists below the line that you have on NHA. So from a number standpoint to just a narrative standpoint, I could definitely get behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes some sense. And it's interesting because it's a player who does have assist acumen, 27% assist share for the season. And typically when we see a situation, no Lowry, no Bam Adebayo on the court, we're thinking that Jimmy's going to have to do a lot of facilitating. But I agree. I think it's going to be a night where Jimmy's just going to take a lot of shots and soak up a lot of the usage. And it looks like Alex's projections are agreeing with that. For the season, Jimmy's averaging a 5.2 assists in 33.8 minutes. We've got him slated for 34.6 minutes, which bumps him up to a 6.2 projected assist number, which is still 2 and change below the 8.5 line that we need. So I think, taking two of the key star-ish level teammates in Bam and Kyle Lowry off the court too, just kind of reduces the reliability of his potential assists. It doesn't necessarily reduce the potential assists, but if we're thinking about, all right, who's going to be taking those shots, where are the opportunities to actually score the ball coming from when he does dish it, I just think it leads to, a lower assist potential and a higher narrative for Jimmy to just take more shots and soak up more usage here. So I think that one makes a ton of sense. 90-ish%, maybe even if that's a little high, even if it's in like the low 80s, I think it's still a good one to book into a card here.
Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button when you pop in here. You're subscribed, of course, as well. We have the 3 channels, not just the DFS, the odds, and the season long. Our buddy Kickstart got to make some money tonight. Been on a bad streak since Christmas. Well, hopefully you're paying attention to what's going on here. As Tyler, of course, producing, has put together a couple of strong plays already. That's a winning ticket. We still have the 6-4 all the way down to 1, but we're giving you some pretty strong percentages that these go over. I'm curious about approach here, right? Because if you go back to the overs, we're below Portis, and now we get into the high 80s, but you have stark contrast. You have 2 guys who are going to play a lot of minutes and 1 guy who's not projected to play much minutes at all. Many minutes, I think, is the technical term, right? Many minutes at all here. Does that matter to you? Are you looking at banking on somebody like LeBron who can be out there a ton, or maybe you take advantage of, even if it's a narrow gap, the percentages are the same, so that's moot, but you take advantage of a guy who's not going to be out there nearly as much, especially if you're going under. In this case, we're going over, but I'm just curious how you play that with less minutes versus a ton of minutes.
As long as they're secure minutes, right? I don't want to take an overplay where it's this guy could play 20 minutes tonight, or this guy might not take the court at all, like we've talked about with some of these other ones. But looking at the board, we've got a 19.5-minute projection on Thomas Satoransky, who I assume is the guy you were kind of pointing at there. And that leads to, just in that limited amount of time, it's only an 8.5 PRA. He could trip over the sideline and still make an 8.5 PRA. I mean, that's not that difficult. So let's see what his averages are. In 14.9 minutes average for the season, he's averaging a 6.9 PRA. So we're most of the way there in a 14.9 minute average, and we're projecting him for 19.5 minutes. Maybe it's not the most exciting play on the board, but it will be a fun sweat to watch him try and get to that over, right? I think you do need the 20 minutes, but I think it's relatively secure that we're going to get that 20 minutes from Sato here tonight. So I'm comfortable taking that one. I think the Kemba one is also interesting. 2.5 rebounds. That's it puts us at an 89% probability. Alex has him projected at 4.45. We've got him projected for 31.5 minutes. And, with the massive amount of minutes he's been seeing recently for the depleted Knicks, they're getting some guys back, but I still think Kemba's going to get a decent amount of run here. Even in his normal average for the season, and we all know he's sat out a bunch of games because Tibbs doesn't really like him, but he's got a 27.3 minute average for the season, and he's averaging 3.6 rebounds in that sample. So he's already over in just his normal average minutes. He's already over the 2.5 that we need. I think that one kind of fits into what we're looking for here from a guy who we do expect to play a significant amount tonight. If he sees something like 36, 40-ish minutes like he's seen in the last few games, he could skyrocket through that one. Now, I'm not saying he's going to grab 10, but he could easily hit 5, 6 rebounds in that amount of time. So I like the Kemba one there. I'm probably more inclined to just take the easy rebound one there than I am looking into the PRA one. Like, let's not give him too much to do. Let's not worry about that. Let's just focus on the easy one to pick off there. I'd be fine with any of them, but at significantly lower probability. You're talking 5 percentage points difference. I think that's significant enough to just book the rebounds one and not sweat it.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that in a similar scenario here with LeBron, because you're not really gaining much. 3 percentage points, which again, in some cases could be all the difference, but asking somebody to do more when the solo play, like points, assists, rebounds, the single one is just as much of a slam. So I don't mind on the surface losing, well, I guess it's 4 technically percentage points. I don't mind losing the 4 percentage points by dropping the rebounds for LeBron, because the point differential is so much easier to buy in, especially without AD and Westbrook, whatever the hell's going on in his head.
Yeah, I mean, that I agree with. And I'm actually surprised we've only got it as an 80%, or that it maths out as an 80%, I should say. It's not like Alex is just throwing darts and picking these numbers. But the points one, 23.5. I mean, that is easy for LeBron James to reach. That's, he's averaging 27.4 for the season in 37 minutes a night. We've got him projected for 37.7 minutes. To your point, no AD. It seems like a no-brainer that he can reach that one. Alex has him projected for basically 30 points on the night, for 30 real-world points. 23.5 seems like an easy line for LeBron James scoring to pick off. So I agree with you. Let's give him a little bit less to do. We'll sacrifice the percentage points in the math and take that just single target points prop.
Yeah, I mean, you have pretty much a point larger of a difference, wider technically of a difference, Terry, between LeBron's NHA line, his projection, and Bobby Portis's NHA line and his projection. Yet there's a 8 technically percent difference in that, right? So using just the gap or margin of a gap alone, something's off where LeBron would be at 81%.
Yeah, I mean, look, it might be something
maybe
that's
volatility.
It could be that we're just taking the safe route for volatility there. I'm not entirely sure why that's so low with such a wide gap on it, but I think it's a strong play regardless. Look, we're talking about something that's an 80% probability, even if that number is dead on balls accurate. So, hey, that's fine. I'm comfortable taking something for LeBron James that's 80% probable in just the median projection. We all know what LeBron can do on the court. Would it surprise anybody if LeBron goes out and racks up 45 real world points against Houston tonight? Not me. It's going to be a fast-paced game. So, yeah, I have no issues with that one. And even if the math is correct at 80%, which I'm sure the guys got it right, I'm just not sure what they built into that projection there. So I'm totally comfortable going with that one.
All right, 2 guys that we haven't brought up quite yet, or at least in reference to play. One of them, Hero, that we talked about briefly, but not in play. His rebounds under 6.5 rebounds. Alex has him projected just under 2 different as far as 4.77 versus the 6.5, with an 85.7% chance of hitting. And then right above him is Drew Holiday. And this is another gap of nearly 2 full assists. The difference between NHA's line at 7.5, Terry, and then also where Alex has him just over 5.5. Now, both of these have strong percentage of hitting. You had Hero at 85.79, as I mentioned, and Holiday is north of 88, really 88.4.
Yeah, the Drew one, we've got him projected for 5.6, and it's because Alex has him with just 31.5 minutes. That's one that would maybe start to concern me if we do see him just get up even toward his normal 33 minutes a night or a little bit beyond that. I think maybe we've got him projected a little low. He averages 6.5 assists in 32.9 minutes a night. We've got him projected for 31.5 minutes tonight, which has him at 5.64. 7.5, though, I don't know if that's a comfortable enough margin for me, where if Drew Holiday goes out and sees a few additional minutes tonight, that could be problematic. So I'm not totally sold on that one. I think it's fine. I think it maths out right, but that would be one that I would maybe not be so inclined to chase, where the Tyler Hero one kind of makes more sense to me. I think that's one where we're coming in 4.9 average on the season and they're asking for 6.5. Again, we're cutting him a little bit under his minutes average. He averages 32 minutes a night. We're cutting him to 30.3, which gives him a 4.7 rebounding projection. But that's right in line with his seasonal average of 4.9. And if they're asking for more than he normally does, Tyler Hero, not a player that we typically think of as a big rebounder. He's more of a scorer and a facilitator. 7.6% rebounding share on the season. I'm more comfortable taking that one. I would have that one ranked a little bit above the Jrue Holiday one.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Anybody, I saw Maxey was an interesting one on the over, and we're starting to get, at least for the over standpoint, we're starting to get in the low 80s here. But Maxey over assists jumped out. I want to make sure that I didn't miss the rebounds. Yeah, rebounds a little less there, but assists 3.5 on NHA. Alex has him just under 5 at 4.88. I do like that. 81.8% chance that he goes over. And, Maxey is definitely going to be out there. The minutes aren't a problem. He went from being a consistent scorer when everybody was out, and now he's being asked to facilitate a little bit more. So I don't see a problem with that one. 81.8%. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think that one makes a lot of sense. We're talking about a guy who's averaging 4.6 assists a game in 34 and a half minutes, and we've got him projected to hit basically his exact minutes average. We've got him, for some reason, we took 0.1 minutes away from him and gave him a 34.4 instead of his 34.5 average, which I find amusing. But that gives him a solid 4.88 assist projection, which is right in line with his seasonal average. And yeah, to your point, with some guys missing and him picking up a bigger role in the offense here, he's just taken on more of a facilitator role to a degree. So there's plenty of opportunity for him there. I think it's one that kind of makes sense here to take a look at. 21.4% assist share on the season. Definitely a guy who also we could see an uptick from the minutes average, right? We've seen him play over 40 minutes several times this season. I don't have the exact number in my head, but I know he's a guy who gets extended run in a lot of situations. So there's plenty of opportunity for him to get to that number. I like that one a lot. And I would probably even vault that one up above the Jrue Holiday one that we were looking at on the under. Just a little bit more confidence. Maybe it's just more fun to chase the overs, what we've talked about in the past. But I feel a little bit better about that one even than I did about the Jrue Holiday one that we talked about on the under.
Yeah, I almost feel like we need to take the Holiday one off the board because that was the one that you were the most reserved about, right?
It feels to me like the one that's closest to what the guy does under normal circumstances. And if we get a little bit of a nudge in minutes or they're just having a big game, and let's keep in mind who they're playing today too, they could light this team up and just do a ton of scoring. And I mean, these guys, there is the question mark of maybe these guys don't play a lot in the fourth quarter because they're lighting up Orlando so much, but to get there, he's going to have to produce and Giannis is going to have to produce. So I think it's safe to say that maybe that one is a little bit too highly projected. So yeah, I would be more inclined to lean into the Maxey one.
So we're down to the 1 point play here, technically, on this ticket that we're building. And I don't think we have to break 70 quite yet. All right. Seth Curry, as far as overs are concerned, we've used everybody. We've used everybody we can here. It's a handful of guys. We went Halliburton, LeBron, Maxey, Walker, Satoransky you hit as well, Bobby Portis. So we've hit a bunch of guys already on the over, and now we're down to Seth Curry assists at 2.5 to 3.68. But the problem is that that's at 78.7. I think we can do better. I think if we sort on the unders, Terry, we can find something that's still in the 80s, like Tyler. Oh, no, we mentioned Hero. I apologize. Actually,
I tell you what, the one that stands out to me from one spot below Seth Curry from the same team, your guys, Joel Embiid, the rebounding prop, 9.5 rebounds. We've got him projected for 11.3. He averages 10.9. We've got him projected for 32.4 minutes. Yeah, it seems like the line is kind of low there. So I'm surprised again. We've got him projected essentially 2 rebounds ahead of that line. I'm surprised that's only a 78%. I'm sure it maths out correctly. And again, it's a situation we've got him projected for 1 minute less than he normally receives in 33.4 minutes a game. He's got a 16.4% rebounding share. He averages 10.9. So he's averaging more than what we need. I kind of like that one if we're hunting around for something in these high 70s. And I'd rather chase that on the over, I think, than chase one of these, similarly aligned unders. Like, I don't know that I want
Right.
to chase like a Juan Toscano Anderson rebound or a Lowry Markkinen
That was
rebound.
the only other one, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And they're somewhat close to what they normally do here. So I'd rather go with the big man from Philly and ride for the over on Joel Embiid when he's averaging more than what we're required for here.
3 straight games, double digits. Granted, the first 2 were 10, but who cares? That's all we're doing is going over 9.5. That's what we need. Yeah, that game against Brooklyn where he had the 9. That's where I think NHA is trying to pull on people, where it's like you've had games where even in high minutes, he's had that 8-9 rebound. He's hovering. But anybody that all it takes is looking at our projections and what you just laid out. He first the average, and then on top of that, what he's done recently against bad teams. I love going over. I'm surprised it's not 10.5, to be honest with you. 2 straight games of 10 and then 13. I would be surprised. I would not, pardon me, be surprised if it were a 10.5 tonight.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I don't have the exact because there's just take a minute to plug in all the different pieces in Wowie, but I would expect in the current configuration, the rebounding percentage is certainly not dropping below his what he's done for the season with a few extra guys off the court. So I definitely think there's potential for Joel Embiid to smash through that one once again tonight and put up a solid rebounding game. And it kind of makes sense, with Tobias back on the court. It just makes sense that they're going to be focusing on him to do some dirty work, and some of these other scorers can handle some of the usage and some of the scoring loads. So not to say that Embiid's not going to have a nice scoring night, but I think the rebounds are easily going to be there for him on this number.
Yeah.
And I'd rather chase that too than like I was just hunting for anything else on the unders. And there's a lot of uncomfortable ones. Like do I really want to chase a under 28.5 points for Nikola Jokic at 71%? Do I want to chase under 2.5 threes for Julius Randle at 72%? There's a lot of these that don't excite me that are kind of close into to their averages and lower on the probability scale. So that one just makes the most sense.
Yeah. Is there anything else kind of as we wind down here, a name or a play that you like that isn't necessarily a total reflection of the number? Like, for example, you just gave us Embiid, but that's a strong play for you, not one that we would definitely lead off with because of the percentage. So there might be a percentage play aside that you still really like that you would get to, even if it's a 3 to down to a 1-point play.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's an interesting one a few slots down in Kevin Porter Jr. Coming back to the Houston rotation in a game that we expect to be kind of fast-paced and wide open, playing on a bad team that misses a lot of shots. There's going to be potential for some rebounds in that game. We've got him projected for 30.7 minutes tonight, right around his season average. He averages 4.4, so he's averaging a rebound ahead of the line. We've got him projected at 4.5. It's a 75%er. I'd be pretty comfortable taking that one there. I'm no real issues there. If you wanted to chase like the Halliburton instead of the one we talked about, if you for some reason want to take a little bit more risk in your card, I think the points plus rebounds is certainly fine there. We got them projected a handful above the line. I just prefer the other one that we talked about. It's significantly more likely to come in. So that's kind of the game we're playing. It's a lot of the same names, same guys through this level. And it's just taking different angles. But I for pretty universally, I prefer the ones that we already covered above these in terms of probability. And that's really the way we want to be building these cards, is just taking Alex's projection, looking at the probabilities. You can mix and match some of these other guys in for sure. Like Christian Wood projected for a rebound and change above the 10.5 that were required. That's a big total, but it's definitely something he can do. He averages 10.8 and 31.3 minutes. So I have no real issues with that one. It's a 69%er. But now we're starting to stretch when we've got some things in the 90s and the high 80s to work with.
These are all free for you, so make sure you pop on Awesemo, take advantage of that. Also, if you're not part of NHA, what are you waiting on? We're matching your first deposit up to $25 at DigitalBeat21 at Shander Show for us on Twitter. Thanks to Tyler for producing. Really, all we ask, hit that thumbs up button, please. We're over 100 in here. This is fantastic. We appreciate you guys being a part of this show here. And I know it's all for Terry, thinking and hoping maybe he would slide in latest review of Dexter, but we don't have time on these, these minimized shows here, right? I still need to watch this week. So no spoilers, please.
No spoilers. We'll hit that one on an hour long sometime soon.
You got it. All right. Thanks again for everybody hanging with us. Hit that thumbs up button on the way out. It does us wonders, and we'll see you again later this week.